Well, welcome everyone. Most of you who are here have uncovered a terrifying and devastating secret or multiple secrets kept by your partner. These are secrets about infidelity, betrayal in the form of an affair, pornography use, secret spending, sexual acting out behaviors, substance abuse, and more. And many of you begin to scour the internet looking for help and answers and for a way through this nightmare because these kind of discoveries are overwhelming and paralyzing, and you're just trying to get answers. So, I am here to help you today sort through the 10 most common misconceptions and myths that I've found related to betrayal trauma recovery and this whole sex porn, love addiction, intimacy disorder recovery process. My name is Kristin Snowden. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California, and I've been working in the field of betrayal trauma recovery and sex, love, porn, and substance abuse addiction for about 15 years now. I do regular webinars helping you navigate through these types of relationship crises because most of you have been completely blindsided. You never knew this kind of stuff existed, and you're desperately asking for help and for answers. So, professionals and experts like me who deal with this all day, every day, and sites like sexandrelationshiphealing.com provide you expert guidance and advice, opportunities to ask questions, get live small group support, and multiple free and low cost resources on our websites because there is a lot of misinformation, misunderstandings, misguidance out there related to the differences between maybe a single seasonal affair, sex, love, porn addiction, betrayal trauma, the cost of loving someone who has betrayed you, the physical, mental costs, and figuring out should I stay or go? What are our next steps? And what is our path towards healing? So, with that said, let's just dive right in. And I'm going to share with you the 10 most common myths or misconceptions I see on the internet related to sex addiction, relationship crises related to these, and betrayal trauma recovery. So the first myth is it's just an affair. It was some inappropriate texting. I just went to a massage parlor. I'm just watching some pornography. These are just things that I do to relax, to cut loose, to meet some needs. These are the things that people will say. It's just an affair. Let's deal with that. But I want you to know that it is so much more than just the affair. I mean, I kind of crudely say sometimes it's not about one sexual organ going into another sexual organ. Yes, that part is absolutely devastating, but the really multi-leveled, overwhelming states of devastation and betrayal trauma come from the fact that your partner regularly is lying to your face. They're sneaking around doing this whole double life behind your back while you, as the betrayed partner, are just trying to conduct life. You made marital vows or promises to be monogamous, and you're raising the kids and you're doing life and you're making plans towards retirement. And you think that both of you are moving forward in this particular way as teammates, maybe with similar values and goals and priorities. And then you just get blindsided uncovering these secrets, these lies, the fact that your partner could come home and lie to your face every day, that maybe you've confronted him or her and said, there's something off in our relationship. I don't know what's going on. You seem angry. You seem disconnected. And instead of coming clean, they'll blame shift and say, well, maybe if you'd had sex with me more, or maybe if you didn't nag me so much, or you're crazy. What are you talking about? Um, all of those elements are the things that overwhelm our bodies and make it so unbelievable that our partner could engage in these behaviors. So no, it's not just the affair. It's not just some inappropriate texting with somebody or viewing the pornography. It's this leading this double life and all the lying and manipulation you do to keep that going. Secondarily, I just did a video on is it infidelity or sex, love, porn addiction, where I kind of talk about the differences between the two. And so it could also not just be an affair. This could be part of a chronic, longer, protracted history of more broader issues of just having poor emotional regulation, and inability to choose healthy coping skills, and someone regularly doing harmful, destructive, acts and behaviors and choices despite their promises to, love you, protect you, be in a relationship, try to keep you and the family a priority and keep everybody safe. So this can be part of a broader, bigger cycle of addiction that you need to explore and have experts help you assess. Myth number 2, the betraying partner or addict's behavior is a symptom of a problem in the relationship. This is a very, very messy myth and misconception. Oftentimes, when people will go outside their marriage, have these double lives, and then they get caught, the first thing out of their mouth is often blame shifting. I did this because, I worked so hard in my job and I create this great life for you. Who cares that I do these behaviors? So what are you complaining about? Or, yeah, you stop giving me attention and you just nag me all the time and you never appreciate me. So this is how I go get my needs met. That story or those stories or those justifications and entitlements are different from the fact that you decided to go out, do these behaviors that are counter usually to your own values and the promises and commitments you've made, that you decided to lie, to manipulate, to keep doing this, even maybe when your partner found out and they're hurt and they're asking you to please stop, asking you to get help. I did a whole video that we call like a letter to the addict or betrayer. That's kind of just all the lists of entitlements and rationalizations and all the reasons that they give about why they're justified to do these types of behaviors. But the truth is that you always have choices. When a marriage goes bad or things go wrong in life and life gets tough, you have choices. And when you go outside the marriage, when you go outside your marital vows or you go outside the promises and commitments you've made to a particular person who's made themselves vulnerable to you, you are choosing to lie, to sneak around, to go outside your value system, to use unhealthy coping skills that are more destructive than helpful and reparative within yourself and your relationship. So just keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that if this is part of an addiction cycle, it doesn't matter what the state of the relationship is. People in the rooms will sometimes say, I drank when I was really happy and I drink when I was really sad. It's the same thing for sexual acting out behaviors. I can go search, lose myself in hours and hours of porn when I'm really, really stressed and overwhelmed, or when I'm really, really bored and have nothing else going on in life. I'm going to fantasize and plan my acting out behavior when I'm really excited because something great happened at work and now I'm entitled to take a break and relax this way, or because my wife or my husband are a nag and they don't meet my needs and I want to go out and do this because, this is going to go meet my needs. I hear addicts, rationalizations and entitlements, justifications all day, every day. Yes, can it be like, can finding out about cheating be a catalyst where they can kind of say, wow, this happened. This is a symptom of a problem in my life, in my poor coping skills. What's going on inside me that my best thinking got me here? And yes, can we use it as a catalyst to go into therapy, talk about what wasn't working, learn better communication skills, and use it as an opportunity to repair wounds and resentments and harm that has existed during the lifetime of a relationship? Absolutely. But is the catalyst to you going out and lying and sneaking around and breaking commitments and promises and doing devastating, harmful behaviors because your partner made you? Absolutely not. So there's a really big difference. A betrayed partner never causes their partner to go out and lie and do destructive behaviors. Never, ever, ever. Okay, myth number 3. An addict or betrayer needs to just stop doing the behavior. Stop abusing the substances, stop seeing the affair partner, and just stop doing it anymore. This is a partial myth in that, yes, that is correct. You need to stop doing this behavior, but it's not just about that. It's a first step in a journey of many, many more steps. And there is so much more underneath, quote unquote, stopping the behavior. Ideally, I get calls all the time. They're in crisis and they're like, I just found out my partner's been doing this. What now? There is a general process to healing that I've just found, tends to work. The formula, so to speak, is yes, first, stop seeing the behavior. So let's start living in alignment with our promises and goals. But it also comes with coming clean, telling your betrayed partner how long you've been acting out, what you've been doing. In the sex addiction world, there's this concept called full therapeutic disclosure, where it's a very structuralized, very purposeful, meaningful process of the addict disclosing the timeline of acting out behaviors. So that's really important. It's not just about stop it, okay, get over it. It happened a year and a half ago. How long are you gonna, complain about that? My question always, when those things come up in couples therapy or with an betrayed partner, is, do you even know what happened? Have you even had a chance to really wrap your brain around the fact that your partner had this whole life going on, unbeknownst to you? Your brain really wants to complete the story. Part of the traumatic part is that it's this unknown that you just didn't know. You have no context. Who was it? How many people? How much money? Where was it? All the above. And betrayed partners usually need to know to some extent this information so they can complete the story in their head and move through the trauma. So they need to stop the behavior, come clean in a structured, healthy, productive way, not trickle abusive disclosures. I'm a believer of attending 12-step meetings or some kind of going to some group of people who have suffered and struggled in a similar way, and they're working towards recovery and repairing and being better and making better choices. So whatever that looks like to you, attend therapy with someone who specializes in addiction recovery, intimacy disorder recovery. Create what we call a circle plan. So this is understanding what absolutely are relapse, unacceptable, not okay behaviors, what are slippery slope behaviors, right? I do it every time I travel. I do it every time I get overwhelmed at work. I do it every time something stressful happens at home or when I'm celebrating. So really understanding your acting out pattern, what triggers it, creating a relapse prevention plan, an accountability structure with other people that you are engaging to help you make the right choice, to help you manage your uncomfortable feelings, help you manage what your goals were, so you don't let that kind of addict brain take over and you just go straight to seeking out pleasure, seeking out distraction, seeking out numbing. You need people around you to ground you and remind you of what you're doing this all for. And then after there's been some level of sobriety and structure, that the cheating or acting out partner or addict has developed some level of empathy and compassion and understanding for what they've done and the harm that it's caused, and developed a higher tolerance for uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable conversations, then you can go into couples therapy and repair what's been hurt in that way. One little thing that I want to add, I'm listening right now. I'm a big fan of Allan Schore, who's actually a professor over at UCLA, and he was talking about he does this work called interpersonal neurobiology, and he doesn't talk about it directly in the context of addiction, but as we all know, like, addiction is an intimacy disorder because at some point I had an opportunity and I have wiring to want to connect with other humans. I have a very social wiring. Every human has a very social wiring to want to connect to some extent to other people. And then instead, I chose this acting out behavior of choice, whether it's pornography, substances, etc. And so understanding what's going in an interpersonal neurobiology, that the wiring that goes on inside you, it's really interesting as we're talking about what do addicts need to get healthy, to stay on the right path, to change their wiring. And he talks about how we have a left brain and a right brain. And in our left brain is where everything is very hyper logical, hyper rational. You're not able to see the big picture. You just kind of see it from your very small context of rationalization and thought, right? This is where you have your opinions, your thoughts. This is where the acting out occurs, the addict behavior occurs, and the justifications for it, and whatever he or she doesn't know, whatever my partner doesn't know isn't going to hurt them. And these are all the reasons why I'm entitled to do this behavior. And I'm not going to think about the damage that it's doing and the cost and the fact that it's actually not solving any problems. It's just pushing them away. This is all left brain kind of linear stuff. And then the right brain is your emotional brain. It's your learning brain. This is where our attachment is built. But this is also where our fear and joy and everything happens. So that's where our learning occurs, where perspective is gained, where the ability to connect with another person for their happiness, their sadness, and having a connective experience with them is all right brain. You can't just stop doing the behavior and think that it's going to be fixed, because you are in that left brain kind of state. You are a left brain kind of person who just loves to wrap yourself in the blanket of rationalizations. Why I'm entitled to do this. I don't want to think about the consequences and the pain that it's causing me or people I love. And you have to go to therapists and groups and other people to shift over to that right brain mindset of, God forbid, feeling feelings, uncomfortable feelings, and God forbid, watching somebody else suffer and struggle and talk about pain and be able to tolerate that. These are all necessary to rewire your brain and change your left brain addict acting out behavior to a right brain that knows how to do emotion, do connection, understand the broader picture of what's going on here with you, with me, my place in life, etc. So I hope that helped you understand why it's not just about stopping the behavior. Myth number 4. Anger, sadness, rage, and grief are all counterproductive to the healing process. I work with betrayed partners all the time, and they almost all have the story of a raging moment where they've shattered a phone on the ground, broken something, screamed out expletives, all in states of pain, anger, sadness, grief, etc. This is a double answer. All emotions are important. All emotions need to be acknowledged, have their place. They are emotions, as I just said, are a biofeedback loop system that we need to connect with ourselves, connect with other humans, to learn, to repair, to get to that better place. So all emotions have their place in the healing process. The linchpin, the key here is the coping skills that you use when you are going through these emotions. If your goal is to not destabilize your family system, then throwing dishes and screaming expletives, while it's understandable that you might have had a moment in that state, you usually want to work towards getting back to a better version of coping with these very overwhelming, very paralyzing experiences that come hand in hand with betrayal. So we're constantly, even though you're in crisis, it is your responsibility to figure out how to cope with, how to manage your extreme upregulated state from being scared, overwhelmed, uncertain, angry, and your downregulated state of being depressed, grieving, your nervous system shutting down. I have so many webinars on how to help your nervous system upregulate and downregulate. And by the way, to go back to Allan Schore's interpersonal neurobiology, one of the most significant tools you can incorporate into your life is to use healthy people, safe people. So usually not the addict who's acting out, but other people who can help you upregulate and downregulate. But you just need to bring back agency and choice to your own body by, I offer like a menu of kind of coping skills on my website, KristinSnowden.com, where it's just, you got to try through trial and error, taking walks, deep breathing, yoga, meditation, cold plunges, hot saunas, singing, music, dancing, all these options to really help you move through all these emotions where they're acknowledged and experienced, but you try your best to stay in alignment with who you are and how you want to show up. Okay. Myth number 5. Only the addict or the betrayer who's done something wrong is the one who has shame, not the betrayed partner. I also have a million videos on shame because I think learning about shame and how it shows up in your life is a game changer. So while shame is a big part of an addict's addiction cycle, so the addiction cycle tends to be like they fantasize or they're in withdrawal and they really want to act out to go seek out pleasure, run away from pain, get out of their feelings, get out of their body, and they'll fantasize, plan it, act out, do the behavior. Then they'll make promises. Okay, that's the last time, and they're going to do that again. Oh, I'm a terrible person. They go into shame. And then it feels really gross. And then they need to move back into fantasy. How do I get it out of my body? What am I going to do? Fight with themselves and then act out. And thus ensues the addiction cycle. So yes, addicts absolutely have a ton of shame. Learning about their shame and exploring it and creating a shame resilience process is part of addiction recovery, also for general infidelity recovery. But betrayed partners also have to go through this process as well. They struggle with a ton of shame, even though they are not the ones who, quote unquote, did the wrong thing. They still, and any of you who've watched my videos know, the way I explain shame is as long as I'm wired to want to connect, I'm going to have a equal and opposite experience in my body all the time that's afraid of saying, uh-oh, what if you're not enough? And so, of course, when you uncover your partner's betrayal, and as I explained already, it has nothing to do with you. This is an unhealthy coping skill that your partner chose, and the lying and sneaking around, that is all your partner's choice and their doing. However, our brains are wired to automatically write a story of how am I wrong? How was what I did the cause of this behavior? It's kind of a messed up coping skill our brain uses because everything external to us is out of our control, and it's so scary and it's so vulnerable that all these scary things can happen and we can have no control. So our brain goes, I know, I'll write a story that maybe if you were a better mom, maybe if you were more attractive, maybe if you didn't nag him or have emotional needs, or maybe if you just get over it, then maybe this wouldn't happen to you. So out of fear and survival, your brain writes this shame story, and you really have to take a minute to sit down, understand what the shame stories are. And again, I go into this in much more detail in multiple stories, in multiple webinars. You can look up Kristin, Snowden, and shame and find a much more protracted explanation of how you work through the shame that betrayed partners absolutely experience, even though they aren't the ones who went out and did the lying and cheating and sneaking around. Myth number 6, you have to leave the relationship in order to heal and move forward. Well, my quick response to that is yes, some people decide that the harm that was caused in the relationship or by their partner is just stronger than their desire to hang in there and work it out. And that is okay. That is okay if that's the conclusion that you've made. But sometimes that's not always possible because maybe there's kids involved, there's financial issues, there's other forms of dependency that require you to stay in the relationship in the same home, whatever the case. And frankly, sometimes there's people that just don't want to end the relationship. They have hope for their partner to be able to change. They came from divorced families themselves, and they have really strong beliefs about not wanting to create that environment for their own kids. They don't want to leave and go start over again. So there are a plethora of reasons why people stay. That is absolutely okay. That is 100% up to you. You can heal inside the relationship. You can heal outside the relationship. The only requirement that I say is necessary is that if you're going to stay in a relationship where your partner is not stabilized, right? They haven't done all the things that I was talking about earlier. Come clean, stop the behavior, leaning into other people who can help them learn better coping skills to make better choices, have accountability. You have got to find your own stability despite your partner's behaviors and choices. So I'm always a huge proponent of betrayed partners getting into groups, again, betrayed partners groups, because they need to reality check kind of the madness of what their partner says. Their acting out partner will often have, blame shifting, gaslighting behaviors, manipulation, all the things that I've talked about. And they really need a place to come to talk about what's going on. They need a stable support place where they can define what's okay, what's not okay, learn a healthy, stronger language for showing up. I mentioned healthier coping skills to manage all the fear and rage and anger. That all needs to be developed. You need to create some semblance in your life to bring some kind of safety and stability and consistency in your life, despite your partner's choices and behaviors. So you can heal. I've watched it happen despite the madness going on with your addict partner's behaviors, but I've never seen someone do it alone. So you got to bring in the troops if that's what your life's going to look like. Okay, myth number 7. Once a cheater, always a cheater. They'll never change. My answer to that is maybe. It depends. Obviously, I would not do this for a living if I didn't have a true belief that people are capable of change. I find that there is a general formula, and I kind of talked about that earlier, the path towards change and healing, that a person or a marriage or coupleship can go through to generate change. But do I find that many people avoid this formula like the plague and keep repeating the same harmful behaviors over and over and over again, despite them harming themselves and other people? Yes, this is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, but hoping for change. Um, that's again, hopefully you've heard all the things I've said before this, so you know what I feel like needs to happen to ignite change. Um, I mentioned before that I've met several marriages and coupleships where their relationship hit a dark season of life. Some poor choices were made. There's poor communication and inability to figure out what they needed and ask for it in a productive, helpful way. And those steps led to someone having an affair or acting outside their relationship. Um, that affair or behavior, uncovering it, ignited a process to them maybe getting repair, moving towards healing. And those couples, if done right, end up reporting feeling like they have a new relationship. They have a better relationship than they've ever had before. They've shared things and learned things about their partner that they never knew before, some good, some bad, but nonetheless, it's now I truly see them and I know who they are. And the partner will say the same thing. So uncovering cheating or affair can sometimes catalyze healing, a greater level of vulnerability, intimacy, repairing things that maybe you didn't even know or realize were broken and needed to be fixed. And that's a possibility. But when it comes to addiction, so these behaviors being part of an addiction cycle, abstinence is required. Figuring out what those slippery slopes are required, and creating a lot of structure and accountability around making sure that you don't fall back is necessary. I was just talking to a client the other day who has about 10 years clean, and he was talking about another friend who just went out and relapsed on substances. And we were just talking about like what do you think the difference is? You know, why have you been able to pull 10 years, not go back, and you keep seeing all these other people fall off? And he says, I just think it's consistency. He says, I just stick with the meetings. I stick with the program, the 12-step meetings is what he's saying. I keep myself around others who want to be sober, who want to keep working towards those goals. And I stay far away from people who don't fall in line with those behaviors and goals. And he said, because all the people who fall out, they stop going to meetings, they stop connecting, they create all these reasons about why they don't have time or why everything's fine and they're good now. And then he says they hang out with people who just are not aligned with the desire to stay sober, to stay in alignment, to work towards self-improvement. And personally, I find that those who stay sober, stay in recovery, are, well, let me start with this. Those who don't are constantly looking at the environment and saying, you all need to change. I just need to make more money. I just need more time. I just need all these circumstances outside of me to change. And then I can change. I need a new wife. I need a new husband. I need that. Like, these are all the reasons, I need to not have experienced all this childhood trauma. And these are all the reasons that I need in place outside for me to change inside. And I actually find that people who are in recovery do the opposite. They look first and foremost, what's my part in all this? What do I have control of in this life, in this circumstance, in this situation? How can I assert healthy change in myself, in my behaviors, in order to move towards the goals that I'm trying to get to? That's the difference that I see. Myth number 8. You need to get into therapy immediately after discovering your partner's infidelity or addiction, and any therapy is helpful therapy. So for the betrayed partners, well, I'm going to say not all therapy is helpful. It really just depends. And timing is important when it comes to when you go to couples therapy, when you've uncovered infidelity or addiction. And I talk about this. I think there's a video I did on things to consider when you go to couples therapy. But for betrayed partners, because they might need a place and safe space to kind of talk about what's happening and get their thoughts together, sure, go to a therapist. I'd encourage you to go to a specially trained therapist who understands betrayal trauma or just trauma in general. But just remember that if you still live in a very traumatizing crisis environment, doing trauma work like EMDR is going to be hard because you can be easily cracked open again and re-traumatized when you get another trickle disclosure or when you uncover something new. Regarding couples therapy, right immediately after crisis, meeting as a couple with a mediator, like a therapist, can be helpful to create rules of engagement. So, like co-parenting or what are our next steps forward, education on all the stuff that I was just talking about what recovery looks like and what the path should look like. However, real coupleship recovery therapy should not occur. Well, first, unless you have someone who's well trained in sex, love, porn addiction recovery, betrayal trauma. And secondarily, it's after the addict has some sobriety, has some capacity or ability to talk about hard things and hold space for uncomfortable emotions, and then also learn some empathy and compassion, which again were all those things I was talking about with learning that right brain skill with other people who've suffered and struggled in a similar way. All right, 2 more myths. Number 9, no one will ever understand the nightmare that I'm going through. I can't speak about this horrible betrayal that my partner did to me because it's too shaming and embarrassing. I hear this all the time, but let me tell you, that is like such a counterproductive place and space to be in. And again, I hope when I went to that whole right and left brain scenario, you have to talk about what has happened to you. You cannot keep it inside. You have to go to other people. And again, it's people who can hold space um, for this type of trauma. And usually that's, again, therapists who specialize in this, or betrayed partners groups for people who have suffered and struggled in a similar way. They're working towards similar goals. Um, and they can sit and listen with empathy and compassion and, not just kind of throw their judgment of, oh, you got to leave the guy. Why are you still with them? Do X, Y, and Z and everything's going to be fine. So be careful of that. But yes, you must share your story. Yes, it is there's so much shame and there's so much embarrassment about the nature of this betrayal, which is why you want to go to a betrayed partner support group. Sexandrelationshiphealing.com has a bunch of them. I have them on my website. I would really encourage that you seek that out. Lastly, we have number 10, which is you just need to get over whatever he or she did, and then you can move forward. So there's a lot of people that will kind of shame and blame themselves. God, yeah, that happened 2 years ago. Why am I not over this? Why every time the anniversary of uncovering this, do I find myself getting sucked into the vortex of pain and hurt and anger again? Why, why do I hear that song and all of a sudden it ruins my entire day? Or I get a memory from a photo from, my partner's acting out period. And then I'm sucked into so much feelings of pain and abandonment and grief and loss. Removing the threat. So removing the threat of your partner's acting out behaviors or the affair partner or the pornography use, removing those threatening behaviors and experiences does not cause the trauma to be unwired in your brain. Trauma is wired. It's an emotional experience of fear and hurt and all these overwhelming, yucky emotions because it wants you to learn and have you never go through that again because it was so scary. So it wires deeply and hard into your brain. And that's why we have things like post-traumatic stress disorder, where I just came off, I'm a soldier in a wartime scenario and I had all these planes that would fly over me. And I knew if there was a plane, there was going to be explosions or gunfire or my life was going to be threatened. So now, even though I've removed the threat and I'm not in the wartime zone anymore, my body will think I'm dying every time it hears a plane because it's made that strong, hardwired association with this sound means death. Now, imagine that association being wired into your brain when death is your partner, your husband or wife who cheated, who lied, who manipulated. And you have to work really, really hard. And again, I have other videos that are talking about unwiring betrayal trauma and the trauma you've experienced at the hands of a trusted loved one. It is hard work, but it has to happen. And just your partner stopping the behavior, or, it's been a year or it's been 2, that is not going to unwire the trauma that you've experienced. And that's it for the myths related to sex addiction and betrayal trauma recovery. I'm just going to remind you that my website, I have 2 new workshops that are posted that are starting in January for a betrayed partners group and for partners who are continuing on healing after deciding to leave. I also, Scott and I have an audiobook of our Life Anonymous book. So if you're an audiobook kind of person, we now have an audiobook version, and this is being discounted through 2024 to kind of celebrate that milestone. So I'm here for Q&A now.
I was thinking when you were talking about the left brain and right brain, and I know Allan Schore, and I know of his work, but I was thinking, like, okay, if we're really in our left brains, and then we need to be more in our right brains, like I have this, like, it'd be really nice to have a little connector, and maybe that's what recovery is the connector between the two.
That is
that
what
we don't,
recovery is.
yeah, because we don't switch from just being,
It's eye
left brain to right
contact.
brain.
It's listening to the story, feeling their pain, realizing you can survive after feeling pain. all that kind of stuff.
Very
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, there's no cord that you're going to get that's going to connect the two, and then you're going to be magically fixed. So, anyway, okay. So, there's questions, Kristin. Let's get to those. Well, thank you for this webinar. So helpful. Was wondering if you would speak about trauma bonding. I know I need to let go of my husband. He chose addiction over his family, but I'm still but I'm still hopeful. We have separated for a year.
I know it's so interesting that you're talking about trauma bonding because again, this Allan Schore, by the way, I'll just plug it. Allan Schore had like a 2 hour interview with Andrew Huberman. So I find it really interesting, especially when you think about it in the context of attachment. Because you're talking about trauma bonding, but really I like thinking of it from a attachment theory, which is this idea that we are meant to pair bond with our partners. Like we are deeply entrenched with it. Like you're naked with them, you have children with them, you have intermingled finances and plans and all that stuff. So you're deeply intertwined with your partner. That's not a trauma bond. That's supposed to be like a secure attachment. Um, but Allan Schore was talking about, we have these 4 types of attachment. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there's this less than ideal one that's called disorganized attachment, and it's when you never know what you're going to get from your primary caretaker. So one minute maybe they have an addiction issue or a mental health issue, where one minute they're raging, and then one minute they're telling you that they love you, and then one minute they're like, oh yeah, you're so smart and you're so great or such a great parent. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're the worst thing in the world and I don't know why you're here and I regret being married to you. And as I was listening to that, I was like, God, that's kind of what betrayed partners go through is one minute they could be securely attached or from a secure attachment where they feel or they think life is consistent, is predictable, and all these things that create safety. And then all of a sudden you uncover this this secret life, and you are thrust into this disorganized attachment situation where you don't know where you can find consistency, you don't know where you can find safety, you feel like your body's out of control, you feel like your life and your environment is out of control. And so really what I'm just trying to tell you is I'm just trying to validate, like, it's not necessarily trauma bonding. Your body's just trying to come to terms with, like, what is safe, who is safe. I thought this person was safe, but they're not, because they keep making unhealthy, scary, concerning choices. And I need to break off, but why do I feel this longing and this desire to stay connected to them? The answer to that is often that you've got to expand your world and know that maybe your husband, because he continues to act out, is not safe. But there are many other people out there that can see you, that can know you, that can be consistent, that can show up, that can remind you of what that secure, that consistent, that predictable connection can feel like. And hopefully that will help with the rewiring. But in trauma bonding too, I think has a lot to do with unprocessed grief. That maybe you're bonded and connected with the story or what you hoped life could have, would have, should have been with your husband. And you're just kind of stuck in that, and you're not really sure how to move through that, which is why I also have grief after betrayal groups to kind of help you split your brain into two, that this is the reality. My husband is not getting recovery, and I probably need to let go to stay safe, to regain stability and sanity. But I am so stuck in what it could have been, and he just needed to get recovery, and he could have just done these 12-step meetings. And why do you have to make it so hard? Why did you make these choices and all the pain that's associated with it? So that's kind of what's going on.
So the next question, and this one comes up a lot: how does a betrayed partner heal from triggers of seeing women that their husband would lust over?
Yeah, this does come up a lot. And it's part of the trauma. Because again, your brain has recorded that these people, someone who might be in your husband's attraction template, is a potential danger. And then, of course, because we look at things egocentrically, and how can I stop him from doing this again? Maybe avoid a neighbor that might be in his attraction template, not be friends with someone who's in their attraction template, not watch movies that might have attractive people in it. I mean, that obviously is putting a lot of responsibility and a lot of not so great feelings and stories in your body, that you now have become very judgmental on, have to be like hyper vigilant around just random women that normally weren't that triggering to you. That's your body seeking safety and craving new information that your husband might be around these other people who might be in his attraction template, but he is now viewing them and seeing them in a different way. When he's in his addiction, those are all just fodder for him to get distracted, to lose himself in fantasy, not be present in his body, not be with you in relationship. Theoretically and hopefully through recovery, he now sees that person as just another human being, not upon in his process of just like distracting and getting out of himself. There's techniques that they use to help them kind of change their brain again from like that left brain. I can see this person as just like someone that I can fantasize around to like this is a real human. They're off just shopping for groceries. They have desires and their own feelings in life, and I don't need to use them. So there's tactics and processes that can help shift that. But also, as the betrayed partner, I'm going to encourage you to have these conversations with your partner if it's safe to do so in a couple setting. Talk about the vulnerability of this is how I feel when I see these people. What's going on for you? Can that addict partner offer you any new frameworks, thoughts, feelings that help you feel safer?
So we are 2 months since Discovery Day. My wife had a several month emotional sexual remote affair. We have been married 12 years, 2 young kids, 6 and 9. She is not in love with me and wanted to divorce me for a couple of years, and I had no idea. She is now okay to work on the relationship for the kids. She is currently very avoidantly attached. She was anxiously attached years ago. How does she develop a connection if it's hard for her to spend time with me or go on a date with me as a betrayed partner?
I'm sorry. I do have several more videos where I kind of talk about the path towards infidelity, affair recovery. So you can look at those for more detail. Um, but this is often how repair and reconciliation occurs. Your wife has had her brain hijacked by kind of this what we call like dopaminergic new intense seeking behavior, and it's going to take some time for her to kind of come back down to earth. Now, I'm speaking very generally because I can only speak generally, but generally, what tends to happen, there's exceptions, is she doesn't want to think about what she's done and the harm that she's caused. Because the emphasis here, as you said, she says she's been done in our marriage for many years, but I had no idea. So there was, whether she meant to or not, active avoidance of information that was really important to give you so you could make the next right decision about her resentment and anger, whatever. That obviously was fuel and entitlement for her to eventually go out and have the affair. Um, Hopefully that's not happening anymore. I know lots of relationships that try to repair only because of the kids. That's okay. Therapists can work with that. I'd encourage you to see a couples therapist that specializes in affair recovery or betrayal trauma. But you can't jump into the marital fixing part yet. You first need to clean out the betrayal part. What happened? If you need a timeline or more detail, that's okay. How do you know she's not acting out in line anymore? So we're establishing what has happened so you understand what's going on, and then creating some accountability and structure to the fact that she's not lying, sneaking around, cheating anymore. Then when those two things are established, you can move over to like what happened in the coupleship and give the coupleship a chance to talk about how things went wrong, how to repair, how to heal, and so on. But we tend to dive right after an affair very erroneously and to the damage of a betrayed partner straight into like, oh, I had the affair. It's because our marriage was terrible. And then you start talking about the marriage. But you have to first go back to the betrayal and the multiple times that your wife could have offered you important information that would have changed your choices and helped you stay safe, or at least made you feel like you had choice in the matter. Give you that information, repair that trauma, make sure it's not still unsafe, and then move on to the coupleship repair.
So many more questions that we won't get to. We're
Yeah, I
out of
know we're
time
not going to be able to
today.
get to.
So I put Kristin's website in KristinSnowden.com, and you can reach out to us on our website as well. Lots of resources for each and all of you. This video will be posted hopefully later today on the website too. So thank you, Kristin. Thanks everyone for the great questions too. Bye.
Thank you so much for coming.